You're listening to The Takeover with Kelli K, Naturopath, joining us.
Wellness Wednesdays on The Takeover, brought to you by station sponsor Kelli K Naturopath. Book your free intro call today at kellik.com.au.
Kelli, welcome to the show for another Wellness Wednesday.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
I actually missed you last fortnight because I was on leave, so I wasn't able to catch up with you. So it's been a few weeks since I've spoken to you, but I am so glad that we're chatting with you again tonight. And tonight we're talking about a topic that I think a lot of people face either silently or publicly, or perhaps they don't even realise is an issue for them, and that is IBS. And we're talking tonight about not just IBS, but also the FODMAP diet, which in 2024 a lot of people put hand in hand with IBS, and it's a diet that a lot of people use to treat the symptoms. So, Kelli, first and foremost, what is IBS and what are the symptoms?
Yeah, okay. IBS stands for Irritable Bowel Syndrome. It's a functional digestive disorder, so this means that there's no structural issues as such. And the symptoms can range from stomach pain, cramps, lots of bloating, lots of gas, usually constipation or diarrhea or both. And a lot of people will often also find that they have some food sensitivities or intolerances. They may also have some reflux and nausea and things like that with it as well.
So there's a whole stack of different symptoms that can come with IBS.
Yeah, absolutely. And how it looks for each person can be a little bit different. Different individuals experience it differently.
Yeah. And I guess the severity of those symptoms as well can change. And I mean, I have been diagnosed with IBS in the past. It's one of those things that I was diagnosed by a nutritionist, by a dietitian who was talking to me about my symptoms and said, look, it sounds like you've got IBS. And that was why they kind of said, go on the FODMAP diet. And that's why I'm a little bit familiar with it. And we will talk about the FODMAP diet a little bit more in more depth after the break. But before we get to that, can I ask, Kelli, what are actually the causes of IBS? Like, do we know what actually causes it?
So there's not a clear-cut answer for this. In the past, it was put down to being a psychosomatic illness, which basically means people were told that it was all in their head.
Oh, wow.
But nowadays, we understand that that's not the case. There's a lot of different factors that might contribute. And we know that one of those big factors is the change in balance of the bacteria in the gut and something called SIBO as well, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So bacteria that's overgrowing and it's in a part of the digestive system where it shouldn't be in large amounts. So that's one big factor. And then also that connection with the nervous system as well plays a role. So people will often find if they have IBS that stress can make their symptoms worse.
Yeah, wow.
That's to do with that gut-brain connection that's going on there as well.
So when we talk about the gut-brain connection, just because this is like piquing my interest a little bit, because when you sort of just mentioned before that back in the day, before medicine recognised what IBS really was, it was kind of put down to being symptoms that were in someone's mind. Like they weren't really real, tangible symptoms that they were actually experiencing. But then if we look at the gut-brain connection, does that kind of also tie in with that a little bit? Like I'm not saying that the gut-brain connection isn't real, but I think just is that there's a connection there between the brain and the gut.
There is definitely a connection. There's a very strong connection. The evidence is very clear on that now. And we know that the bacteria or some of the bacteria in the gut actually produce certain brain chemical or what we call neurotransmitters, so hormones that act in the brain, things like serotonin. We know that they can communicate via the nerves, so they can direct the brain. And at the same time, when we're stressed or have anxiety and that type of thing, that will change the way our digestive system functions as well. So there's a very, very strong connection that we're really starting to get a handle on now.
Yeah, just scratching the surface really. It's still very new.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to talk a little bit more about the FODMAP diet, because I imagine many people are listening and going, what on earth is a FODMAP diet? They've never heard of it, or if they have heard of it, even like me, probably still don't fully understand what it is exactly. So we're going to talk about that with Kelli K, Naturopath, straight after this. You're listening to Wellness Wednesday on Life FM. You're listening to The Takeover, and we're catching up with Kelli K, Naturopath for Wellness Wednesday. Tonight, looking at IBS, Irritable Bowel Syndrome, but also the FODMAP diet, which is a diet that is, as we kind of touched on, it's quite commonly recommended for people who suffer from IBS. Kelli, what is the FODMAP diet and how does it actually work?
Okay, yeah. So the FODMAP diet, if you do have IBS, you've probably been recommended this at some point. FODMAP stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So it's really just an acronym for all the different fibers or sugars that we find in our foods that can be difficult to break down and absorb in the small intestine.
So the FODMAP diet is almost, it's like a anti-FODMAP diet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So what the FODMAP diet does is it removes, we can't remove them 100%, but removes the foods that are really high in these FODMAP sugars to give some symptom relief and to try and give the digestive system a little bit of a break hopefully while we work out what else is going on and sort out the gut a little bit there. So, yeah, very common. It is quite restrictive and it is quite difficult to follow. It's not the easiest of diets, but we use it more so as an elimination diet process. So we eliminate the FODMAPs and then we slowly and strategically reintroduce them to see what you might be reacting to. Because not everyone will react to all of the different types of FODMAP.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so it's a very strict diet to start with, but there is hope that some of those foods will be reintroduced at some point. So it's not saying that it's necessarily forever.
No, and there are people that get put on a FODMAP diet and then they're not followed up and then they end up being on a FODMAP diet long term. That is not what it's designed for. There are some concerns around, the long-term implications of being on this type of diet for a long period of time. But so you're right. We use it in the short term to give the digestive system a break, to help control the symptoms. And then we try and dig a bit deeper.
Yep.
From my perspective as a nutritionist, we're trying to work with people to dig a bit deeper to deal with some of those causes that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah. We have to let you go in a second, Kelli, but I just want to quickly ask what other strategies are also important for resolving or managing IBS? Yes.
So besides the dietary side of things, there can be some really useful sort of probiotics and things that have been studied specifically for IBS. So those types of things can be really useful, and we want to actually, as I said, deal with the cause. So we want to be able to correct any of that imbalance in the bacteria that's going on, and we want to be able to reduce any inflammation along the wall of the intestines as well. And alongside that, as we spoke about, that gut-brain connection is really important. We also want to be able to help people support their nervous system, to reduce stress, to prioritize sleep, make sure they're eating at the right time, all of those types of things which help improve that communication between the gut and the brain.
It's a very holistic kind of approach that you take.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. And like I said, we have to sort of wrap up, but just very quickly, some of the biggest foods that you can't eat on a FODMAP diet, I know, include onion and garlic, which can be very restricting, especially when eating out. What would you say are some of the other big ones you can't eat?
Okay, so a lot of vegetables, things like cabbage, leeks, too much broccoli, some nuts and seeds, not all of them, but some are high FODMAP. Wheat, lactose, so dairy products, those are probably your big ones, but there is quite a restriction amongst the fruits and vegetables because they do tend to be high or moderately high in these FODMAPs as well, which is why we don't want people on it long, for months and months or years and years. Yeah.
Okay, so if you think that you might be going through something like IBS, it's always worth speaking with a nutritionist, speaking with a naturopath, getting an assessment done and having a look at what some of those foods could be that might be causing some of your symptoms, and then working with a naturopath or nutritionist to kind of wean yourself back into them as well.
Yeah, it is a very strategic process. So it's not something that I would encourage people go and try and do off their own back. You really do need some support and some guidance through a diet like that.
Yeah.
And then to address the causes as well.
Okay, really good advice tonight, Kelli, and such an interesting topic that I think more and more of us are hearing about or learning about firsthand. So just really so good to be able to chat with you about it tonight. IBS and the FODMAP diet. Kelli K, Naturopath, thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch up with you again in a fortnight.
I look forward to it.
Wellness Wednesdays on The Takeover, brought to you by station sponsor Kelli K Naturopath. Book your free intro call today at kellik.com.au.